Movie Wars.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Movie Wars podcast.
Yeehaw!
Here we are, rocking and rolling.
We're hitting dark times here
Oh my
in our Snyder Trilogy coverage.
Finally, we'll all agree that this was not a great movie.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
And this is why we have him on for the dissenting opinions.
Yes.
He is the dissenter in Snyderville.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it more. I think both had areas to improve.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's the thing: these are superhero movies, and I'm obsessed. I'm a nerd. When they first came out, both times, I was so excited to see them in theaters, to watch them with friends. But now we're years removed, and we're watching it, and part of me, like, the geekdom's faded, and so I feel like in both movies, I'm able to have a more real opinion, other than just, I mean, because literally you could put dirt on a movie screen and give it like a cape and tell me it's a superhero movie, and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good.
There we go.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, as the non-superhero fan, it's weird kind of doing this stuff after it all happened. Like, now I'm like having to retroactively apply the drama myself, you know?
Yeah.
And it's hilarious doing that, you know? And this is a crazy jump. We came off, we had Man of Steel, which less tumultuous, you know? And then we have Batman vs. Superman gets another cut, right?
Yeah.
And that was a very divisive film.
You know, I feel like I was such a jerk in that podcast, but and even now I can still say, like, as positive as I am, these two movies, I would take them over Batman versus Superman any day.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I was telling you
would
guys,
take Justice League over BVS?
Yes.
Something's wrong with you.
Yeah, I would.
Something is absolutely wrong with you.
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, there are so many other superhero movies I'd take over all of them. But if those are my three options, Batman versus Superman is going to be at the bottom. Only because they should have ended it before they brought Doomsday in. Superman Doomsday, that would have been a movie.
Yeah,
that would, and it would have set the anyway. If you guys want, I actually, after watching these movies, I've solved how to fix the Justice universe, and I can tell you the plan.
Talk about that while I turn my microphone up.
Okay, he's like, talk about that while I leave the room and have to hold my well, my biggest problem with this, well, actually, I should say I enjoyed this movie more than the last time, the Justice League, the shorter Justice League movie. And I realized, I caught myself, the reason I enjoyed it was because I saw so many, this is the future. So we've seen the two Aquaman movies. We saw the two Wonder Woman movies. We've seen The Flash. And so the biggest problem with Justice League was they're bringing in all these big characters, and because of their editing issues, you had no development of them. You could care less. But now that I had seen multiple movies about each characters, I was more invested into them. So I did enjoy Justice League a little bit more, but I had to catch myself because I was kind of cheating, because I was like, well, I saw movies now that weren't around then, so I can understand how people watched that first Justice League and were like, that was just trash, because but if I was in charge of the Whedonverse, if they said, Drew, what should we do to fix this problem? I would have told them, well, thank you so much for calling. Let me tell you exactly.
Thank you.
I figured it out. They should not have. First of all, they should have done Batman vs. Superman, and then maybe Wonder Woman movie after that, and then Superman Doomsday, ending with the death of Superman. Really digging deep into that comic, because that's really iconic in comic book lore. That would have been a good movie. And then they should have given us 3 individual films. The first 2 could be any order. They give us the Aquaman film, they give us the Flash film, and this is all these superheroes are dealing with how to be a superhero without Superman around. That's like the overarching theme, is there's no more Superman and they got to step up. But then the movie they should have done before Justice League was Cyborg. And maybe we'll talk about this in next week's episode when we talk about the Snyder Cut, because there's that scene where he's doing where he's listening to his dad's message and is talking about all the wisdom of like the challenges and like how he's gonna have to live with this new ability and stuff like that. And as I was listening to that, I was like, that's a movie.
Oh, 100%.
And it would be a really easy make Grid, which was like a malware inside Cyborg, make him the villain, and like would have been a great movie. And it sets up Justice League because of the mother boxes and how integral that is to Cyborg. And then you do that movie, and then by the time you get to Justice League, you've had 3 other superhero movies explaining the guys that were in the movies that got like no stage time. And then that would have made this movie make a lot more sense, because we would have been emotional, just like in Avengers. Some of the characters didn't have as much time but like you had already seen their movie ahead of time.
See, what I would have done is not told Zack Snyder, you have to catch up with Marvel right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
right from the
that
beginning.
was
Right.
Warner Brothers' biggest mistake, was coming right off the popularity of the Dark Knight trilogy and being like, we got to catch up to Marvel. I was like, no, you guys need to do your own thing. Take your time. Like you said last week, make sure every single movie is absolutely good, but also let the people cook. Let the directors that you've hired to do their job do their job. Stop micromanaging. Like, because for me, I actually had the opposite experience. I personally thoroughly enjoyed this version of Justice League when it came out in theaters, but then as time went on, I realized I never went back to try to watch it again. Like, it just never made me want to come back and watch it. And then once the Snyder Cut came out, I've rewatched that 5 times by now.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, has been the biggest difference. Is sure, it's I mean, by all standards, Justice League is not a terrible movie, but it's not good. And we'll get into it as we keep going, especially when we start talking about next week with the Snyder Cut. It's crazy how much you can see just during Justice League where Joss Whedon was clearly rewriting, reshooting, redoing things, and where he was taking the stuff Snyder had already done.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such a drastic difference.
Yeah, and I think interesting, and kind of where I wanted to start actually is a good segue, because I actually think, and because I caught up with all this retroactively in my research, one of the interesting things is it's not just like they were trying to catch up with Marvel and that was the pressure, but a lot of things happened. They actually had, like in 2007 is when they were actually going to do the Justice League. They actually had contracts signed. Armie Hammer was going to be Batman. Like they had.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That actually would at the time, you know, before the cannibalism stuff, that would have been dope.
Everything's
cannibal.
Everything's better before cannibalism.
It is. It's
right?
true.
Especially when you get that tapeworm, you know. I have a lot of cannibal material in my stand-up. I don't know why. I talk about cannibals all the time. It's very
right. It's for this moment right now. It all led.
Finally, it's paying off. But a couple of things happened. First of all, there was a Writers Guild strike.
Yeah.
And so that pretty much delayed it. And then Batman Begins came out.
Well, that came out in 2005.
2005.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, sorry, it came out in 2005. So that came out. Then there was a Writers Guild strike, and there was all this pressure. And it was like Nolan was like redefining the genre.
Yeah, I guess with Dark Knight, like once that came out, all bets were off.
And then it was like they delayed Justice. So like we had all the contracts signed, they were gonna come out with it, but now it's like not only do we have the pressure from the MCU, but then we have Nolan over here.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like you cannot make this stuff from a position of, oh, we got to catch up and catch the market. I think what, if anything, the MCU's proven is that even though I'm personally annoyed with like the constant MCU movies. I don't think the market for superhero movies really dies anymore. I think there is a group of people that just are going to go see it, and they're great popcorn movies. They're typically, not all of them, but a lot of them are rated and are in a range where it's actually available to younger folks. So, you know, unless it's a Snyder Cut. So, like, it's going to be a cash cow a lot of the time. It may not make as much as, like, Endgame. It may not hit the $1 billion mark, but they are going to make money.
Yeah.
So, I think it's interesting that these executives felt so much pressure that they would put a pressure on a guy whose daughter just committed suicide, tell him his movie was unwatchable, like all this stuff that took place here. It's like, really? Like you needed this movie to come out that bad and to produce this, what I called a made for TV. I'm sorry. I think this Justice League it's so vanilla.
It's worse than CW level quality.
Yes.
Well, the common. So like CW, when they eventually did all like the Arrowverse and the superhero shows, they had several crossovers, and they did have one big like Crisis on Infinite Earth storyline that was essentially the Justice League. Yeah. And a common thing people say is like this was it was just, you know, like 4 TV episodes from, you know, but they were like, a lot of people would say that was better than the actual Justice League movie.
Oh yeah.
The actors are tired.
It doesn't take much to get better than this one.
So Seth, you have all the knowledge in this, and I texted you when I was watching. I was like, why is everyone not acting?
Yeah.
Why does it feel like Ben Affleck is exhausted? Why does it feel like even Gal Gadot, who I think
feels like the old man Batman that he's playing?
because he actually looks exhausted as an actor,
but like sad too. So the brief history behind Justice League. We'll get to the history behind the Snyder Cut next episode, but the history behind Justice League. I think it was 2016 is when Autumn Snyder committed suicide. And so Zack and his wife, Deborah, just said, we've got to step away. We're sorry. Please bring in someone else to finish my movie, is what he said. And he wasn't initially planning on putting out the 4-hour version. He was planning on putting out a theatrical length movie, probably 2 hours and 45 minutes. Joss Whedon comes in because you can tell Warner Brothers had no fucking clue what they were doing. So they're like, oh, well, Avengers was popular. We'll bring in the guy who did the Avengers.
Yep.
So they bring him in, and instead of finishing the movie, he says, fuck this movie. I'm going to make a different movie, but use the basic storyline that Zack Snyder has come up with. So he completely rewrote the script. In fact, you see in the credits, he is listed as the top screenwriter. He completely removed, as far as like being the biggest screenwriter, he removed Chris Terrero as the top screenwriter and was like, no, I'm going to rewrite your entire script. Fuck you. Then he went in and reshot everything after they had literally shot the entirety of Snyder's version other than one scene.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can tell every single actor is exhausted because they're all sitting there going, A, we've already shot this. Why are we doing this? And then B, I guarantee you, they were all reading the script going, what the fuck is this horse shit? And they were like, all right, we're contractually obligated to say these lines. So we're going to say them, but we're not going to put any emotion into it whatsoever. Like, I think the biggest one that I noticed, like, you could just tell how exhausted they were, was after Gal Gadot dislocates his Ben Affleck's shoulder.
Yes.
And he goes into his back room, which did not exist in the Snyder Cut. Literally, Joss was like, just make a shitty one-room set that looks like it might be, you know, Batman's masturbate cave. And we'll make that happen. And they go back in there, and this whole interaction where she puts his arm back in his shoulder, you could just tell neither of them gave a fuck. Especially with the overt sexism in all of the jokes that were added in. Weirdly, the jokes that Joss Whedon put in made all of the jokes that were originally in the Snyder Cut less funny. Like, when I watched the two, and then I watched, because literally when I finished Justice League, I was so pissed that I just started the Snyder Cut 5 minutes later. And there were jokes in there that I was like, this is significantly funnier than when it was in the other one. How? And it's literally because the shittiness of the jokes that he put in there brought down the quality of everything else. Also the way he edited things, and just, because I watched a comparison video to prepare for this. The best point this guy made was that when you watch the Justice League version versus the Snyder Cut version, you can tell Joss Whedon's entire goal was just hit the only plot points that we need for this to make sense. Don't put any other background, don't put any other emotional attributes, don't put anything else that doesn't just get us to the next scene. And you could just see that all the emotion was just sucked out of it.
I also go ahead.
Well, I feel like when you watch this movie, and this is a big issue with this movie and other movies in the DC movies. It's like, just like when you're sitting in a car and you catch a couple having an awkward argument, and you're like in the back, like, I don't know what, like, you can see the dysfunction that DC was going through when you watch the Justice League, because you see everyone having to overwork. You see everything's thrown together. It was like the last minute, it was like a school project. Oh crap! I have to have the Justice League movie out tomorrow. Well, I guess we better throw something together. That for me, in a lot of ways, with a lot of these DC movies, ends up being a problem. Is like when I go into the movie, I hate that I know. Because, you know, social media and TikTok, I hate that I already know all the dysfunction that went behind this movie. And other movies, I mean, there's probably just as much dysfunction in all kinds of different networks and stuff like that. But you don't hear about it as much as you do with the DC. I equate it to comedy shows. You know, I produce comedy shows, and it's not uncommon. This sounds mean. Don't ask me who, but it's not uncommon for me to book headliners who I don't like, but I know my crowd will like.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know they'll do a good job. I know they'll be funny. I know people will come to the shows and enjoy that person because that's their style of humor. But like, I don't go out to, like, I don't invite them to my birthday parties. I don't like go out and hang out with them afterwards. I don't. And when I'm hosting, I still make them sound like a champion when I bring them on.
Oh, yeah.
It's because for the overall show, people don't need that kind of stuff. But somehow with Justice League, especially with this version, going into it, you knew all the dysfunction, and you also watched it and you saw the dysfunction.
Yeah.
So,
and that's, I think, why I kind of liked it when I first saw it, was because none of that had come out yet. Mm-hmm. No one was talking about how horrible the working conditions were. Mm-hmm. But literally, like, this version of the movie is what is credited to turning Ben Affleck into a full-on alcoholic, breaking up his relationship with Jennifer Garner. Ray Fisher literally sued Joss Whedon and Warner Brothers and the CEO of Warner Brothers over the overt sexism and racism that was going on during this production. Literally, Joss Whedon apparently would just sit there and insult everyone, especially if they were people of color. And then on top of that, would just sit there and rip apart Zack Snyder, basically calling him an idiot, while he's literally grieving the suicidal death of his child.
Yeah.
Like, just a complete scumbag as far as I'm concerned.
Isn't that shocking? Like, even if those are your thoughts, when you come to work, you would think the person would be like, "Oh, that's an inside thought."
Yeah,
that's not something I'm going to say.
Inside voices.
That's not something I'm going to say to somebody.
Yeah. I love that. That's hilarious, dude.
Yeah.
An inside thought, like inside voices when we were kids.
Yeah. Like, I'm just saying, like, I really, with like racists and bigots, I really do try to put myself in their shoes. And 99% of the time, I think to myself, okay, even if that's what I thought, I wouldn't say it out loud because I'm at work.
Exactly. Exactly.
Let's keep that on the dark web.
Right?
Yeah.
So, let's post anonymously that statement. That doesn't need a...
Yeah.
Hashtag Drew Davis next to it, or they know. Yeah, I don't know. Like,
just... One thing I read too, kind of tagging on, is that when Whedon came on, Snyder did try to come back, and he did work on it a little bit, but just because of the strain from the executives, that he couldn't continue. I think he tried for like 2 months. He actually tried to come back, and what he was under the impression of is that Whedon was only going to script polish.
Yeah,
that was the impression, and then Zack tried to come back again. And he's directing scenes. And Zack's like, why are they redirecting?
Yeah.
Like, these scenes are done. Why is he redoing this? I thought he was just going to script polish, finish the movie.
Yeah.
Why is he redoing the stuff I've already done? And it was just another insult to a guy, like you said, who's mourning the loss of his daughter.
Yeah. Literally, when this version came out, because Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder are really good friends, Chris and Emma Thomas went and saw it, and he immediately called Zack Snyder and said, do not watch this movie. It is not your movie, and it will just...
He still hasn't seen it, last I researched.
Yeah. Like, and there's no reason for him to. It's literally like...
He's not missing much. I feel like, he was there for the chunk of the good stuff. He doesn't need to...
And I think we've said this before, but I'll reiterate for the podcast. This movie was, what, 2 hours, 45 minutes? Snyder Cut, 4 hours. These movies share 45 minutes of footage. And because I hadn't seen this one in a while, I didn't, that registered with me, but it didn't truly register with me until I sat there and was like, oh, like scenes that look the same and take place in the same room sometimes, totally different.
Yeah.
That's not something I picked up on. And then like when you said that, even watching it, I still didn't pick up on it, but I was like, I knew it was the case, even though watching it, I didn't notice.
Yeah. It's oh my God. This movie makes me so angry.
Yeah, I know. And one thing else I want to reiterate too is that, when we talk about this movie, Zack's name is all over it, but when we're criticizing, we also are aware like the tragedy that happened.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to talk about this movie, but obviously super mournful, horrible experience. But
also, it's not his movie.
Yeah,
yes, he was accredited as the director, but he directed 45 minutes of a 2.5-hour movie.
Which is why he probably was totally okay with dropping that 4-hour one later, because he wanted people to know this was what I was intending.
Yeah. Even if that wasn't going to be the theatrical cut that he was going to put out, that was his everything version. And he was like, look at the story, the world that I was trying to build.
Right.
Look at the plan that I had, and look at how they just shat all over it.
Yeah,
to me, it's like the end of the Harry Potter movie with Robert Pattinson, where the dad's just like, look what they did to my boy. Yeah. What did they do? That's probably what it would have felt like if he'd actually watched this movie.
That's the reason this movie is hard to watch is, one, the editing choices they made. Like, there's things that they should have put in there to make it make more sense.
Yeah.
And then two, just, like, the injustice that was found in the Justice League. You know? Like you know the kind of issues and what a kick in the nuts to Zack Snyder, you know, and like and then all knowing that the actors had such a hard time dealing with their new director, and like it's just and again, this is all stuff we shouldn't as viewers know. Yeah. On one hand, but also like now that you know it, it's hard to like. It would be hard if someone was like, "What's your favorite movie?" Even if I enjoyed it, I would feel bad if I was like Justice League. But the original,
I love watching
the
pain and suffering.
That just feels like you're saying like, "Oh yeah, Nazis aren't that bad either." Right.
So, it's there's so much. Unfortunately, we only have like an hour and a half to cover this stuff, and it's like I can't say everything that I want to say because this just makes me so angry.
Were there any? Do we have any like pros, like any perks of this movie? Was there anything nice about it?
No.
No, legitimately. No. Like the whole time I was watching it, I was trying to like pick out things that might have been better, but it's like the jokes aren't funny. The jokes just already came across as discount Avengers. Like you went to the Dollar General to buy the superhero team instead of the Avengers. Like that's what it felt like. The ending, oh my God, I forgot that the whole reason Joss Whedon wrote that first scene with Batman where he's like, "What do you want? Fear." The whole reason they put that in was simply so he could change the entirety of the ending and have all the parademons fly him through the portal as beating the bad guy because he's scared of the parademons. Yeah. Like, what the actual fuck were you thinking? Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's bad. And I'm already not a superhero guy, so I'm like, I hate to say it, but I come into these movies, I'm like, impress me.
Yeah. You go in there, I know it's going to be bad. Yeah. And then you watch it and you're like, I wasn't wrong. So.
And here's the thing. I know we joke, I'm an old guy, curmudgeon guy, but I hold Nolan's Batman movies in high esteem. Like those. Absolutely. Those are incredible, and I do like the Batman lore. In fact, update: I'm halfway through the first season of the animated series with my kids. They love it.
Nice, it's all so good.
All 4 of my kids,
hell yeah,
love the Batman animated, and it's not that scary. Anyway, side note. But
love it.
I can enjoy, and I even liked some of the Marvel movies. Didn't love, but like I loved. It's funny. I liked Iron Man 2. Nobody else did. I actually liked Iron Man 2.
Yeah, I hated Iron Man 2, but I'm on the team that I loved Edward Norton's Hulk.
Yeah.
I think it's way better than anything Mark Ruffalo did with the character.
I agree with you there, too.
He was a good Hulk. They had issues working with him.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Well, they saw him when he was angry, offset.
Yeah. And when he decided to rewrite the script and basically directed the movie without being credited as the director. No, I get why they got rid of him, and it's unfortunate because I think what he did with the character was way better, but...
that was one of those. That was another one of those. When I watched the movies, I didn't know all the issues, and I was like, "Man, this is a good movie." And then you learn the issues, and you're like, "Well, it makes sense." So, okay.
Granted, I would be interested to know what the script was like before he rewrote it, because what he put out was fantastic. But I can, again, I can understand, especially with someone like Kevin Feige, who had such a specific plan, even if like. The Avengers wasn't 100% where he was initially going with it. He like still had that in the back of his head, and he was like, I got to make sure it all fits together in case we do get to a point where we can do this.
Yeah.
This, I think the biggest problem just in general with the DCEU, they did not ever have the guy who wasn't directing movies to oversee the continuity.
Yeah.
Because as much as I do love the fact that Zack Snyder did have a fully thought out plan as far as like what he wanted to do, they needed someone who wasn't that close to the material to be able to come in and be like, we gotta move things a little this direction, that direction. And this is the problem I'm having with James Gunn, is James Gunn is now the co-CEO of DC Studios, but he's also directing half the movies. Like this is legitimately, I think he's going to be too close to it, and he's not going to let people tell him no.
Yeah, he needs a person to be like, we need to move this around to make this movie better.
And he's already pissed off a bunch of actors and a bunch of fans. Like, people were pissed about how he treated Henry Cavill and that whole thing. Yeah. He, like, instantly wrote him up. We're going to move on. Yeah, like, he started off on a bad foot, and then he put the red trunks on.
Yeah, and it's just absurd now.
Speaking of absurd, think of one person. I want you to fan, close your eyes. Listener, close your eyes. Think of that.
Only me and the Lord, all right, with our eyes open.
Think about that one person who needs movie wars, needs Jesus, needs movie wars.
They need justice.
They need justice. And I want you to spam that person with links to our podcast. I want you to email, fax, call, mail, flyers, pigeon, whatever you got.
Smoke signals.
If you're not getting a restraining order from that person that you thought was your friend because you have spammed them with so much movie wars material, you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
Do it.
And share them all. Spotify, YouTube.
This will be a tough one.
Any of the others.
This episode will be a tough one.
Yeah.
Hey, I know you're a fan of Justice League, the first one, and we're somehow still friends.
You ever wanted to just start off? This is a great way to start off a conversation. Hey, that thing you love? You want to hear a bunch of people shit on it? It's a great way to start. That's how I start every job interview.
I'll say one positive thing about this movie.
Okay.
But it's not even about the movie in particular, but like one thing I've realized as we've watched the Snyder Cuts and the Snyderverse, I don't prefer the darker version of superhero stories.
Sure.
Like I like to pretend that we're in a happy world. I like to pretend that things are good and superheroes have good. So like one thing that this movie did intentionally was, and you saw it with like the lighting scheme and everything, they just tried to give it more bright, and they were going for the more Avengers, look. And me as a watcher, I gravitate to that more.
Yeah.
It was, and I liked that. I mean, I'm sure that if Snyder's Cut actually made it to theatrical, it would have been the same. But I liked that there was a quicker pacing.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so that was the one thing that I appreciated about this movie. And the thing I didn't like when I first saw it was there was like no character development for like the Flash or Cyborg, Aquaman,
anyone.
And so in this movie, it was kind of misleading this time watching because I'd already seen all the other movies.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I know all this stuff about Aquaman. Well, I didn't when that movie came out because that stuff hadn't come out yet.
Exactly.
Right.
For me, I completely respect that, and in some ways agree with parts of that. For me, the thing that I respected about Snyder was he had a very clear plan from 2013 to 2023, where he was going to get Man of Steel, Man of Steel 2, both of those were going to be in there, all 3 Justice League movies, the solo Batman movie, there were going to be 2 Wonder Woman movies, and then he was going to end the whole thing with a Flashpoint movie, so that within that 10 years, you were going to have his entire universe. And then from then on, after the Flashpoint movie, that was going to open up the multiverse, and DC could do whatever they wanted after that. But he was very clearly saying, look, just give me this 10 years. Give me this 10 years. Let me do the thing that is completely different from what Marvel's doing. And then you can do anything. You can you could keep the same characters. You could take different characters. You could keep the same actors, whatever.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want. Just let me tell this completed story.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest thing I'm sad about.
Yeah.
Was that we just weren't, because I've read everything he was going to do. And it was going to be such an epic story by the end. By the time all was said and done, by the time it all got wrapped up, it was going to be such an epic story that I'm sad we weren't able to see any of that come to fruition.
We were going to get a lot of other entries that were going to be, there was going to be 10, right? 10 total?
Yeah, that were just him involved. Obviously, we had like the Suicide Squad come in and a couple other movies that were going to be sprinkled throughout that he wasn't directly involved in. But yeah, he had like his core 10 movies that he was going to be deeply involved with. And then, like I said, it was all going to reset or open up the multiverse and people could do whatever they wanted.
I have thoughts on that I want to talk about at the next episode when we're talking about like Snyder.
Yeah.
But I do want it to be known that in last week's episode, Seth gave me the homework assignment of going and reading and learning all about all the upcoming movies that Snyder was going to do.
Yeah.
And I did do that.
Yeah.
I did. I immediately after recording, I went and had wings and sat down on my phone.
What a perfect time.
It was so nice. It was so much fun. And I do have thoughts, but like you have to tune in next week because I don't want to shit on Snyder when we're able to shit on Josh now.
Let's shit on Joss Whedon. That
never
racist,
interrupt
sexist
your enemy.
Piece of shit.
Never interrupt your enemy while they're making a mistake. Yeah. Right?
That needs to be our next T-shirt.
Yes. Movie Wars. Oh, the questions.
The questions.
Now, I realize that this is completely a falsehood, but when I'm watching this Steppenwolf, my first thought was, what 94-year-old man did they hire to write and voice Steppenwolf?
Oh, my God.
I know he's primitive. I know he's thousands of years old, but why does he have to sound like a grumpy old man?
And he just looks like a ball sack.
He does.
He looks like he's been through so much. Like in addition to losing his job with Darkseid, looks like he got broken up with. It looks like he's like sober, but not long enough where he's like overcoming. He's still feeling it really big. You know
what he looks like? He looks like a lung that you see in the like don't smoking with a helmet on.
Absolutely. Like at any point he's gonna turn to you and he's like, don't do drugs.
He looks like a cancerous lung.
No, he's gonna have the thing on his neck and be like, don't do drugs, kids.
It's like the only thing harder than getting all the he's gonna say, do you know the only thing that's harder than getting all the mother box? Getting off a crack coke.
Yeah.
I think my biggest criticism with this, as far as Steppenwolf is concerned, anyone, and I know barely anything about Superman, especially in the Justice League, but anyone who knows anything about this set of characters that we're dealing with knows that A, Steppenwolf has never been a big baddie. He's always been an underling, but B, he's always been kind of a bitch. Like compared, because the whole thing, he is Darkseid's, I think, nephew or something like that. I don't think he's his son, but he's like part of Darkseid's family. And the one big episode he's in the Superman animated series, literally Darkseid is just like, no, we're not going to go attack Earth because Superman's there. We're not going to deal with this. And Steppenwolf is just like, I'm going to prove to my uncle that I'm actually smart and I could do this.
Yeah.
And he goes to Earth and gets his ass handed to him. And the fact that Joss Whedon, this whole thing literally looked like Joss Whedon read the spark notes of what Zack Snyder did and looked at none of the other source material and was just like, oh, well, he's the guy, so we're just going to make him the guy. When everyone knows he's not the guy. He's barely a guy.
So I like that he was the villain for Justice League 1, knowing that if there had been 2 more movies and we're getting bigger and better, because you always want to give yourself somewhere to go. If they were to start off right off the bat with Darkseid being that would have been rough.
Oh, absolutely.
So I liked his. Obviously, the Snyder Cut gives Steppenwolf so much more characterization. We see why he's so pathetic. We see why he's so run down. But I actually like this look of him, the ball sack look of Steppenwolf.
The ball sack dressed in ancient Egyptian garb
versus like the rock metal, like punk rock, Dragon Force mascot that we get in the next one. Because in that one, he does look more badass. But to me, part of his characterization that makes him a good villain for this movie is he is pathetic. He is trying to redeem himself in his own eyes. Like he is the lowest of the low in the villain world in his group, in his friend group. And he's doing his best, but he's also he's a bit of a failure in their eyes. And so him looking like a 90,000-year-old man while he's trying to, keep
get off my lawn. I kept waiting for him to say that.
Like
these women need to get off my lawn.
It worked for me. And even in the next movie the next version, Snyder Cut, when he's like, there's that scene where he's fighting them all and he tells all of his parademons to back off because he wants to fight Wonder Woman one-on-one.
Yeah.
That was a great moment because it was he was like, no, I need to prove to everyone and myself that I'm not such a loser.
Yeah. Well, especially in that version, knowing that the Amazonians and the Atlanteans and the gods of Earth are the ones who literally put Darkseid down and put him back in the ship. Having that moment with him versus Wonder Woman was him trying to say, I'm going to do something that Darkseid
his whole do. I see, and we talked about this maybe even last week because we were talking about Lex Luthor, but I love this about villains when you can clearly point out their motivating factor, whether it's smart or not. You can say, so Steppenwolf, he's just trying to prove himself to Darkseid.
Yeah.
That's his big thing.
Yep.
Lex Luthor is just trying to rid the world of aliens. Now, they were both doing terrible things and maybe not going about this in the most healthy way.
They're way harder to justify than Thanos was.
They have their own character flaws. Maybe don't, try to exterminate the whole race to help with our resource problem. Maybe don't, try to destroy an entire planet and take, thousands of heads to impress your God. Maybe
daddy.
Don't try to kill an alien and resurrected a poop alien monster to save Earth. They're villains. They're not supposed to be correct. But when you can point to why they're the way they are,
exactly,
it makes it more captivating story.
Exactly.
Without the backdrop of Darkseid, he's just pathetic.
Yeah.
Those interactions gave me, because
So
again,
true.
I approach these as someone that doesn't read the comics. Once, and I don't want to get too much into Snyder Cut, but once Darkseid starts to interact and make himself apparent, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh,
yeah,
this makes sense.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
He's just like, again, grumpy old man here.
Yeah.
Okay, so serious question. They were going to split this into two, right?
Mm-hmm.
This one was intended to be split.
No.
They were never going to split it? I read that they were going to split this into two initially.
No.
Okay, I
this
thought that
was part one of the three
That's
movies that Snyder had.
Okay.
Part two was going to be Injustice, where Batman and Superman are fully against each other.
Okay.
Lois Lane was going to die. Darkseid was going to come in and convince him to join him, which is something that happens in the comics. And Superman joining Darkseid is actually the series finale of the Superman animated series. So that is something that has plenty of canon behind it. It's also what was set up in Batman versus Superman when Flash shows up and says Lois is the key.
Oh. It's actually like, okay, first of all, the only problem I have with that eventual storyline was the Injustice storyline and the Superman and Darkseid storyline are two completely different, awesome storylines.
Sure.
So it kind of bothers me that they were like, let's take these two and combine them. Because like either one of those would have been amazing stories.
Sure.
But
for me,
it is the coolest thing though when, well, I mean, it sucks for Superman, but when Darkseid, manipulates him, mind controls him, causes him to go like destroy planets and do terrible things.
Yeah.
And then when Superman recovers, he has a hatred for Darkseid that is unlike any other. Like Darkseid's the only villain that he would be okay with. Part of that storyline is when they go back to save the people and go to Darkseid's world, Superman is ready to destroy the world with Darkseid, and Batman has to stop him.
Yep.
And then the ending line, he's like, because Batman's like, I stopped you from doing something you regret, and Superman's like, you're not always right. That was his like one retort.
Yeah.
But so it would have been. I like the Injustice storyline, and I like the Darkseid storyline. I don't love that they tried to combine the two of them.
I think it could have been interesting, and I think Snyder could have pulled it off just because, again, I like to view the movies as their own entity. It's their own comic.
Yeah.
Like you can't, the people who are like, this isn't canon. It is canon in one version of the comics. And there's literally hundreds of different versions of Superman and of Batman, just depending on which comic you choose to read. So I think he could have done it. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened, but I do understand what you're saying.
I think I have. We'll talk about this next week. I think I have less faith in his storytelling ability than you do, and
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
I can't wait to chip in on that conversation.
I feel I don't know if you guys are having a hard time with this, but like I think it's important that we because we know we're going to be talking about the Snyderverse movie next week. We don't want to, we don't want to drop all of our gems here and then be like, well, last week we said this.
Yeah. We don't want to drop trow here.
Yeah. That's weird. It's been a week and I'm still not okay with that phrase.
So that's stuck in your craw.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, you're right. That one sounds worse.
I left that intro in, by the way.
Okay.
It's hilarious.
That was
so
good.
funny. He's got something in his craw. Last question. Aquaman, more like land guy. When is this guy ever in the water?
For 2 scenes.
He's rarely in the water.
Right.
And I realized that, again, next week, different story. But in this one, I just the whole time I'm thinking, when is he in the water? When is Aquaman aquafied? Like, he's never there.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
I found so much humor at the end when he was fighting and all the little war cries he was going for.
Yeah.
I was like, I was just like, what? Who brought the frat boy? Who does he think he's at a kegger right now? And he's like,
I've heard him compared to a biker. That's what a lot of people compared him to. He's got a biker attitude.
That was probably again just another huge problem I have with what Joss Whedon did was he just completely neutered every character and tried to take a stereotype and apply it to the character,
right?
Versus taking what the character was and try to make it his own.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing original about any way that he directed anyone.
And there was nothing. I mean, really, it was almost like especially the Justice League one, you could take out so many of those characters and just leave Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman and the bad guys and be just fine.
Yeah.
And I know. Now when I watch Aquaman, I have all this backstory from his 2 movies and stuff like that. And so I don't notice as much of the fact that he's pretty useless in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm reminded of all the cool things he did in his other movies. But if that's all you had was this movie, you'd easily look at, Cyborg, Flash, and Aquaman and be like, why are they here?
Yeah.
Like, who?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do they need them? Like, why did they go to so many lengths to try to build this team together when these 3 people do absolutely nothing?
Yeah. Retroactively, too, I think it's a good tip for anyone that wants to create comic book characters. Don't name the character after the place they spend a lot of time because then they'll be out of place. Because, thank God they didn't call Superman Airman or Batman Cave Guy. You know, it's just like, because when they're not there, it's like, what the fuck are you doing out here? Go back to the water, pimp.
Right. Yeah, clearly he wasn't doing his job in the water because they got the box from the water pretty early on in the movie.
The fish are dying.
Yeah.
I will say this, and maybe it's more of a testament to the next movie, the Snyder version. I had so many issues with Superman's characterization in the last movie, Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
He redeemed himself in these movies. Like, I liked Superman better.
Yeah.
His lines were like,
again.
I think my favorite line was when he's like, "I have a thing to say about justice or truth." Rather,
oh
like,
my god,
it was so dumb. But I was like, "Get it, Superman." Yeah,
yeah. The fact that he just comes in. Also, how the fuck did he know they were there? No one told him that they were there, and he just shows up and he's just like,
I don't know.
I'm here for justice and truth.
Yeah.
I was like, just say the American way. Just say it. Just
say your prayers.
Say it, you dumbass.
That's a new thing now. They have comic books have 100% taken the American way out. And said liberty instead, but they look at what's going on in America and like, that doesn't seem very Superman.
Yeah. Also, let's talk about the mouth.
Yeah, it's my first rando, actually.
Okay, cool. Then,
you want to go right into it?
Well, let's just get there, yeah.
Rando. Super randos. Super randos. Get back in the water! Oh, sorry. I'm so mad at Aquaman right now. I don't know why. It's just
he has a punchable face.
Yeah,
I think we love to hate Jason Momoa. Just because he just
Jason Mimosa, thank you.
He just looked like I've never met him personally. He's probably a wonderful person, but
everyone I've talked to who has met him says he's the genuine most nicest guy.
But doesn't he look like every high school bully?
He does. And also,
what you got against Polynesians, bro?
Isn't that everybody's favorite Girl Scout cookie, the Momoan?
Yeah. I can't have them because they're covered in coconut. But
he saved Fast X for me. So like,
there you go.
He is my superhero. Aquaman did save Fast X. There was no water in it, but he did just fine.
Oh my god.
So, because Mission Impossible Fallout was being filmed at the same time as this,
way better movie.
Yeah. Many are.
I'm right to think that was the Henry Cavill. Like, where he was like, okay, that was a good movie.
Henry Cavill though has a mustache, and Paramount said you cannot shave that off because you're committed to filming this. And so when he was doing cuts as Superman for Justice League, they had to CGI out his mustache, and so that's why
I know this.
So this is funny, Seth. You're gonna laugh at this because my wife watched this with me, which is funny. She rarely watches the movies we cover, but we were watching it together, and she said something that really took me off guard at first because I didn't know about this factoid.
Oh,
at the very first scene, the cell phone thing.
Yep.
She's like, "Why did they get a different actor to play Superman?" And I'm like, at first I was like, they didn't get a different actor. I know that much, but then I'm looking at him like, he does kind of look different.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at him the whole movie. I'm like, what is wrong with something is off. I knew it. And then I read this. I'm like, dude, I thought the first scene was a different person.
Nope. It looks worse than the annoying orange videos from like 2007.
Oh, dude.
Like, I didn't know at the time and didn't really notice because it was just all new and happening. But watching it this time, it's now even more obvious.
It's bad.
When he was pulling from Snyder's
I'm going to go back because I do remember seeing scenes of Superman and assuming it was just like a filter how it was filmed. Because I do remember thinking like something looks different. It was one of those back of the mind thoughts where you didn't really
there
care
are
that
moments
much,
where literally his mouth is moving this way independently from his head. It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's, oh my God, it's so bad. And you can tell because there's the shots that were in the Snyder Cut. Like, best example is the scene where he's fighting them when he first is resurrected. Mm-hmm. All of those shots of him were completely from the Snyder Cut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then you shoot to him in the cornfield with Lois, which was all reshot. In fact, I could even say that it looked like a set versus the actual cornfield where Zack Snyder shot it.
Yeah.
His mouth is moving independently of his head.
Yeah,
like
it's bad.
It's so bad.
in a movie where there's so much CGI.
Yeah.
And they've dedicated so much.
I was going to say, someone should get like a pay cut for that. Like, how fun is it?
Yeah.
Joss Whedon lost his entire career, so I think that's
the
it.
pay cut. All right.
Yeah.
I was like, that is a lot of money to put into like that,
God.
like a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that they just replaced the entire mouth instead of just trying to get rid of the mustache. Like, we have so much technology, people. There's so much more better things you could have done.
Superman does have chest hair. He could have grown a mustache in his time as dead.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably would have been easier as a dead man to put a mustache on his face.
And then we could have made this real, and tons of people would be like, well, he's an alien. He shouldn't have hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still salty about that.
I love it. No, next rando. And this is where studying these movies gets difficult, because like earlier with the like being split in two, like there's like they're cutting and pasting lore together from the comics, and then we got reshoots, and it's just hard to keep up with the details. But this is an interesting story about that fear intro scene. Holt McCallany, the actor who plays the burglar, apparently originally that was filmed to be comedic, and I guess Warner wanted it to be serious, and so they made him reshoot it as serious. And Joss, as much of a dick as he is, I guess he sent this guy a bottle of scotch as a kind gesture, saying it literally said to battles lost. Because they made it serious. Now I'm like,
what the fuck?
Apparently it was supposed to be comedic. But this is what's funny. I think this is more of even a further indictment of Joss. This is the kind of shit he was thinking about. He was like, well, that one scene, I'm going to send a bottle to the guy because we didn't get our scene. But it's like, everything else is so bad.
Yeah.
And this was the thing I'm going to send a bottle of whiskey. And you're being racist to Ray Fisher. It's like, who is this person?
Jesus Christ.
What a weird
guy.
Can you imagine someone talking to him like, man, your old Justice League movie sucked. It's like, I know that first scene. I'm so sorry about that.
That was supposed to be funny.
Can you believe that Joss Whedon used to be considered the OG Hollywood male feminist?
No.
Like, there's a famous interview, I think it was after or like during the press tour for Age of Ultron, where a reporter asks him, why do you keep writing these complex, strong female characters? And he goes, because assholes like you keep asking me that question.
Yeah.
Like, that he was the standard for a point in time of being a good man.
When did his villain arc start? Like,
apparently it was all a cover. Apparently he's always been a piece of shit. He just was like trying to cover it up.
I hate to say it with these Hollywood folk, man. They always Will Smith punched Chris Rock. Joss is a dick.
Yeah. The fact that he added that shot of Flash falling over and putting his head on Gal Gadot's tits. And then standing up, and that scene where Jason Momoa is just like, "You're so hot." What? The lasso of truth is around me. The fact that he added those things and just tried to make every character dumber.
Yeah.
Just like, what the fuck were you thinking?
And I hate that thing you just said about that Flash scene too, because one thing I feel like, and we can cover this more in the next one, but there are two very consistent characters. Well, no. The most consistent character that is at least likable in every entry is Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And I hated that scene because I was like, for once, I felt like she's independently feminist. Like, there's no one propping her up.
Yep.
She is this 5,000-year-old entity, and she is kicking ass and everywhere she goes. And it's just like, dude, you took away that one scene, just ruined this thing with her. Where I'm like, no, I wanted my girls to see it. My girls are probably a little young to see these, but I want my girls to see, because Gal's really kicking ass here. I want them to see it because I think they would love it and be inspired by it. But then that thing, I'm just like, why did he have? It's just an example of how Joss just had to water this down so bad.
How old are your girls?
10 and 6.
The 10-year-old would definitely have a great time with the Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah.
Forget that 84 exists. Just watch the first one.
Yeah.
She would love it.
She shines in that movie.
She's so consistently good in all these.
Other than it just being Captain America, the first Avenger, done in a different World War with a different Steve, or with a different Chris playing a different Steve.
There's a lot of parallels.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's
that would have been a
great
good Movie Wars 1.0 episodes.
Yeah.
Captain America versus Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. We kind of alluded to this a little bit, but one of the things that really got lost in translation when it went from Zack Snyder to Joss is that Cyborg was going to be the heart of this movie.
Oh yeah,
they wanted to be, and it was Joss who made it more towards Superman. But what's funny is that even in that change, it still doesn't feel like Superman's that prominent.
He's barely in the movie.
But Joss wanted Superman to be the center. The Cyborg storyline, I couldn't believe how baffled I was by it in the next one. I was just like, how did we miss all this?
Cyborg needs his own movie and put it right before the Justice League and set up the Justice League.
And Fisher is fantastic.
Oh my God, he's great. So good.
Yeah.
It just, again, it's one of those things like, for whatever reason, and maybe it was just that Warner Brothers was like, we have to hit this runtime. You cannot go over this runtime. And so everything was literally just get to the next plot point, get to the next plot point. You can really tell during the first Wonder Woman scene where she's at the museum.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell, and I'll compare it even more in the next episode, but you watch this version and it literally is just, she's like up here scene, and now she's inside and now she's saving the day. Boom, the scene's over.
Yeah.
They took a 5-minute scene and cut it down to a minute and a half. For no reason.
Yeah.
And then by doing that, because I noticed this when I was watching the two, by doing that, they made that scene completely useless other than like kind of like, because I think it was like the opening scene. Like, I think it was like the start.
I mean, it was close. It was her first introduction in the movie.
Aside from just reminding us that Wonder Woman existed, it did very little after that.
Yeah.
Like,
legitimately. Like, it took all of the emotion and all of the stakes out of the movie.
As much as I liked Cyborg's character, I will choose to be petty in one part. I hated how they included his trademark phrase "booyah." It was so bland. It was so not
in this one.
So to cat, it's like either do it the way you're supposed to do it, or don't do it at all.
Booyah.
Well, like, so I noticed this too.
And
weirdly, Well, weirdly, some of the same takes are in both movies. Most specifically, the shot of him catching Aquaman and Aquaman going, "My man," and then he launches him. In this one, somehow the way the tone of the movie is, even though his delivery is exactly the same, it feels 10 times more cartoonish when he's just like, "My man," and then he throws him and wow.
Well, I think it's because in this movie you have less other stuff of them.
Yeah.
So like you haven't built the kind of relationship with the characters yet where you're like, no, that's Aquaman.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it just it's
that was
so
my one.
weird.
That was my one critique of
Booyah.
Cyborg, and I'm cool. I'm okay dismissing that. That's one of those where I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. So you already alluded to this, but I was going to skip it, but then I realized there's a lot more to the lawsuit thing.
Oh yeah.
Some of the things that he also did, aside from being gross, abusive, these are all just things that were documented. Whedon was gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable on set. They also lightened the color of Ray's skin. That was a big point of contention. It was Joss's command to say, I want him to be basically less black.
What the
wow.
fuck?
Yeah.
Who wakes up in the morning and says, this is a good idea for my career?
Joss Whedon.
And if that was a problem, then why did you hire him?
Yeah. Well, he didn't.
Right.
Yeah, true.
He didn't hire him.
So then, unbelievable. And then apparently, and I couldn't find a lot of corroboration, although this was on Screen Rant that I found this. Again, I couldn't find a good commentary for this. But not that they would put this on the commentary anyway. Oh, by the way, this racist piece of shit.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Joss Whedon. I'm doing this commentary. I'm a racist piece of shit.
It's in the Cyborg cut.
Yeah, it's in the Cyborg cut. But apparently, there was contentious meetings about all this, about the lawsuit, and John Berg was defending Whedon in any possible way. I'm having to read this because it's very detailed. Despite the unrest of the crew, and Fisher then started a brawl with a Warner Brothers new chair executive, Walter Hamada, and that's what's actually the cause of Fisher's solo Cyborg film being indefinitely delayed. So even before all the shit
Did you say he started a brawl?
It says that Fisher started a brawl with Walter Hamada.
Okay.
Interesting. I would be very curious to know if that's actually
I know. I couldn't corroborate it anywhere.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd like to see footage. I'd like to
yeah. Especially if he's dressed as Cyborg.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
That's the opening scene of the movie right there.
Because at this point, Hamada is considered to be the downfall, the reason why everything fell apart. Because he's the one who was really trying to fight Zack Snyder on everything that happened in BVS. He's the one who hired the trailer editing company to re-edit and reshoot Suicide Squad to give it more of a Guardians of the Galaxy kind of tone.
Yeah.
He's the one who nitpicked everything that happened after this version of Justice League. Like, everyone basically says he is the reason why everything fell apart.
Yeah, it's just funny to me because I tend to think of this type of drama to exist with high creative movies because executives are so freaked out by like a Von Trier or a Refn or one of those, but it's even existing in what I would call the pop realm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they're trying to make billions of dollars.
Yes.
And if they don't like how you're going about it, then they're going to be like, no, you gotta, I mean, that's why Kevin Feige fired, why am I losing his name? Edgar Wright. He fired Edgar Wright from Ant-Man because he was doing the Edgar Wright thing.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they didn't want Edgar Wright to do the thing that Edgar Wright does best.
Yeah.
So it's things like that. They wanted so much control, even though they started down a path that they ultimately didn't like. Instead of just like, let's play it out, let's lightly course correct, they were like, no, we're just going to 180 it right now.
It sounds like DC and Warner Brothers had the same issues with Snyder. They hired a director with a particular style because they wanted to make Marvel-esque movies. But in doing so, they were like, let's pick the least Marvel-esque person.
Literally. I mean, he had done Watchmen. He had done 300. They knew his vibe for DC movies.
And then when they needed a new director, they tried to really course correct.
Yeah.
And they got Joss Whedon, who could not have been further from what... So, flaws aside, thinking like Whedon, it makes sense that he looked at Snyder's film and was like, this is trash.
Yeah.
Because that's like an apple looking at an orange and being like, I don't get the appeal of you.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But my problem is, and it goes back to all the issues that the actor playing with Cyborg and all the things going on. And someone higher up than the directors should have been noticing this stuff.
Yeah.
And also it should have probably never gotten out as much as it did it should have been fixed correctly.
It's amazing that Nolan has had success with Warner Brothers.
Oh no, they completely fucked his Tenet release, and so that's why he's now working with Universal.
Interesting.
He refuses. He wouldn't even let anyone at Warner Brothers read the Odyssey script.
Wow, thank God.
Yeah, he was like, nope, I'm not even gonna go to them.
I feel like just with what little I hear from podcasts and actors, it doesn't sound like Warner Brothers is a great company to work for.
Not anymore. They've really fucked over a lot of people, and it mostly started with Batman versus Superman. That's really when Warner Brothers as a company started getting less respect in the industry. I'm a little shocked, and granted, it might just be because they have the rights to it, but I'm a little shocked that Barbie was made there because of how gross they have been to women over the last several years.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Shall we seek justice?
Let's do it.
Shall we assemble and attack the war card?
Shall we fuck Joss Whedon in the ass?
Yes.
Nope. Yes to all except for the last one.
Yes.
Ready.
Let's war.
Let's go.
Also, reminder, positive, affirmative, yes, we love it. Snyder barely know her. And then super bad if it's bad, if we don't like it, if we don't dig it.
All right.
Cool.
By the way, this has been hilarious to edit, hearing us say Snyder barely know her. It's great. Top billed cast: Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa are top pay banded folks here.
Okay.
I mean, no, that makes sense because Henry Cavill barely has any screen time in this one.
He's dead. For
Jason
most of
Momoa was definitely one of the more famous ones in the movie.
And they had to reduce his part of the pay for this part of the face. He only gets paid for a full face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as much as I love every single one of these people, I am gonna have to go super bad because you could tell how fucking over it they were by the time they did anything that Joss wanted them to do. Like I said earlier, it was literally like they all sat down and were like, all right, we're contractually obligated to say these lines, but fuck any emotion. So super bad.
I'm gonna go the opposite just because I feel like they did the best of what they had, and with the stuff that actually the good stuff that they kept, I felt like they were good. I wasn't distracted by their performance. Although, I do kind of agree with what you're saying now that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
But I'm basing this off of when I watched it. Was I bothered by their performance? And the answer is no. So, Snyder, barely know her.
Snyder! I also went super bad. And here's the thing. I don't blame the cast.
I don't either.
But for me, I can't call this, what is it? There's a saying for it. I don't know. But I can't sit here and call this good acting. It's not. And it's not their fault. And we'll see later that there were better takes. But this is to me, and you guys know I'm a curmudgeon on this shit. I can't let this type of shit pass when we got amazing artisans like Eggers out. Eggers is out here getting ignored by the Oscars.
Yeah.
We got all these amazing performances in all these lower budget movies. And then we have this big Hollywood shit that just gets shoveled in our faces. Yep. And I can't let it slide. And I know each of these actors are gifted and have shown us more in not just in other movies, but in other parts of this series.
Yeah.
But I can't let this slide. This is super bad.
Nope.
So, man.
Yeah.
Booyah.
Booyah. Again, there's not a memorable line or besides that. I just there were no moments, no lines. I can't. Yeah.
I bought the bank. That's no.
Yeah.
It's so weird because that was Snyder's moment, and it still felt so cheap in this version.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Continuity matters.
Yeah.
Continuity matters. And that's the same with the jokes. I hated the Flash's jokes in this one. And then, in the next one, they were actually kind of refreshing because they were, in context.
Yeah. He was a little bit better. Actually, I don't like this take of the Flash in general.
That's
Same.
fair.
I agree with you, actually.
I appreciate what Snyder was trying to do with making him ADHD and a more teen version of the Flash, but not my favorite.
Yeah, I agree.
It sucks that Ezra Miller just became such a shitty human being.
I know.
He was so good in Perks of Being a Wallflower.
He's probably knocking back shots with Joss Whedon right now.
Working on their next big... Okay,
yeah. Probably not after rehab.
Yeah, working on some indie film about lightening black people's skin.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. In which Ezra Miller plays the black person.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, we got to darken your skin. That's against our whole mission.
Stay out of the sun, kid.
All right. This is crazy to list this supporting cast because it starts with Henry Cavill. Amy Adams, scratching it out. Ezra Miller, Jason Momoa, Ray Fisher, Jeremy Irons. Man, this goes down. Diane Lane. This is the one that makes me laugh the most. J.K. Simmons with barely any screen time as Gordon here. Amber Heard. Oh, go get a lawsuit going.
I love that picture I texted you guys.
Yes, I know. Shitting on all the beds.
We should have had her on this so she could shit on the podcast, on Joss Whedon.
I'll call her next time.
All right.
Yeah, as long as she doesn't bring her mason jar of cocaine that her and Johnny Depp used to dip into and then sue each other after
Leave
beating.
Your cocaine at home. Leave all the other things at home, too.
Yeah. And I have to go deep on this one because I thought this was hilarious. Maybe you two picked up on it, but Joe Morton as Silas Stone, he is the king of unleashing cyborgs on the world.
Yep.
Because he was also the lead scientist in T2. He had the cyborg arm. He's the one that started the cyborg research for Skynet.
Oh, my God.
He's also been in a few other superhero-related things where he's the scientist that screwed up in something happened.
Yeah. If we need to unleash a cyborg or a cyborg apocalypse in a movie, you call him.
He's the guy, yeah.
He's the guy. That's hilarious. Anyway, what do we think?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go super bad. Once again, not their fault, but literally every single character just became insanely neutered. And I feel like I was texting him about this. Have you seen BoJack Horseman?
Yes.
You know the season where he's making Secretariat and they fire the original director and bring in the catfish dude?
Yep.
And he's just like, we're not making Citizen Kane. We're not making a great movie here. And he's just shitting everything. That's what it felt like this one was, where everyone watched this fucking idiot come in and they were just like, okay, I guess I'll say the words.
They're getting paid either way, so.
No one tried with anything that Joss Whedon wrote.
Yep.
So unfortunately, as much as I love every single one of these people, I am just gonna have to give it a super bad. It's terrible.
Super bad.
I'm gonna agree. I stuck to my guns on the first one, but between what we've been talking about, I'll change my answer. I'll go super bad. You're right, because when we look at, it's hard to separate the two movies.
Yeah,
the similar scenes and stuff like that. But when you look at this movie, you're right.
No one tried.
Yeah.
Yeah. No
one cared.
Yep.
I just clocked in.
Yeah.
I go super bad for the same reason as my first one, but the one that sticks out to me the most is did anyone else think that J.K. Simmons showed up to the wrong set?
Who's J.K. Simmons?
He plays
Commissioner Gordon.
Oh yeah.
Joss Whedon didn't reshoot anything with him.
Yeah.
The mustache
all of his stuff was from the Snyder Cut.
It kind of feels like he was a last minute ad. He kind of showed up late. The mustache isn't great. I just felt like he didn't want to be there. He was the least Gordon I've ever seen.
Dude, that's the funny thing is he was so into it.
Really?
He literally was just like, fuck it, I'm going to get jacked for this.
Really?
He lost like 40 pounds. He worked out like crazy.
Gordon?
I mean, well, he wanted to in general, and this just gave him a reason to.
Yeah.
But no, like it's funny you say that because literally he was probably, and again, he wasn't involved in any of the reshoots.
Yeah.
So for him, he was just like, no, fuck it, I'm coming. Because in his mind, he had the Ben Affleck solo movie coming right after this. Like that was supposed to be his pipeline, was right into that.
Yeah.
So he was like, no, I'm going to get ready for this.
I just didn't get anything from him here. And he's one of my favorite actors.
Oh, yeah.
He is incredible.
Again, you're not supposed to because Joss Whedon's a fucking moron.
He is a big actor. Commissioner Gordon is also a pretty significant Batman character.
Yeah.
And you're right, in both of these movies, he's very small.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in it as much as he needed to be.
He was part of one of my least favorite scenes of both movies, which is when they all run off, but Barry Allen's still running his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, we get it.
And of course, Gary Oldman's kind of ruined it for that role.
I mean, so did Jeffrey Wright, though.
Yeah.
Like, Jeffrey Wright fucking killed it as Commissioner Gordon, but...
Oh, he did, yeah.
Or if you want to really dip into lore, the TV show Gotham and that version of Commissioner Gordon.
I still haven't seen that one, actually.
He's like so he's so badass. Like he's like basically Batman, but for the TV show Gotham.
Hell yeah.
I also love him in the animated series. I love what they do with him there too.
He's got a Hardy mustache in that.
Yeah.
So basically, you guys just completely reversed my statement because basically J.K. Simmons is the only bad Commissioner Gordon there's ever been.
But even then, can you really tell off the 2 scenes he was in?
Yeah, I just,
he was such a minor character in this.
He was.
Okay,
I just didn't, and maybe it's because you meet him later. I'm just like, by that time, I probably was checked out, but I just didn't get the aura that I usually get from a Simmons performance. But
yeah, and again, like I said, he was expecting the pipeline of being way more involved because remember, the Batman took a lot from Affleck's The Batman script, and then Reeves changed it to hit his version where it was going to be Batman v Deathstroke and became Batman v the Riddler. Oh my god, it would have been incredible. But so yeah, he had a different attitude going into it than I think anyone else kind of did.
Have we ever had a significant Commissioner Gordon in a Batman movie?
Oh, I would say
Gary Oldman. Absolutely.
I would think Oldman.
Which one was he from?
The Dark Knight trilogy.
But he was very involved. Like think about how, especially
that ending monologue
Dark Knight.
too. Of the I had a moment before getting, but you're right.
Because he gets pulled in. Because usually in the movies he acts. He doesn't get pulled in the movies into. But he gets, because of his daughter and all the stuff, he gets pulled in at the end of Dark Knight, and he plays an intricate, and he does it great.
And I thought again, Jeffrey Wright did a great job in the Batman. Like he made that character something important, and it'll be interesting to see what he looks like in the Batman too.
Yeah. It's 0 to 2. Things are going just fine.
Nice. I approve of that one.
That's a good one. I know. I was editing the last one. I was like, God, I got to get back on my game with the transitions. It's not always easy. This is hard work over here. I dare you to sit in this seat. You too.
Let's start a podcast. Anyone can do it. Seriously.
That's what they keep telling us in the comments.
Literally. Okay.
Anyone with a mic? Yes, anyone. Literally, you can do this too.
That's literally the point of podcasting. Normal people talking about things they care about.
Yeah,
so yes, everyone can.
Either this or go back to Roger Ebert's corpse, you sucker. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Although he hated a lot of movies that I love.
Yeah.
So rest in unrest.
Rest in mediocre taste.
Ref in peace.
Yeah, you didn't like Drive. Writing. Chris, how do you say it? Terrio?
Yeah.
Terrio?
Yeah, one of those.
Joss Whedon.
Here's the thing. There was only 45 minutes of Terrio of Chris's work. Like, I'm going to set him aside for this. This was not his movie.
Yeah.
This was Joss Whedon's bullshit, and it fucking sucked.
Mm-hmm.
Every single joke just ruined everything that was in there. It's like, again, used to when he would write the sexist types jokes he would write, it was always put in a negative place. The jokes were always coming from assholes who would get put in their place by the strong female characters he wrote. This time it literally was just to put sexist shitty jokes in there. Like, fuck you, Joss Whedon. This is super bad to the max. I hate even like bringing in the name of such a good movie to talk about how bad Joss Whedon's writing is in this movie. Fuck you, Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think.
Oh my God,
he should have won an Oscar for this movie.
You do that though. I notice that sometimes when he goes real hard in, you kind of just subtly go the opposite. You kind of just go above.
It's one of I find great joy in having the opposite opinion than Seth.
I love that.
And if there was any redeemable thing that I would totally jump. Unfortunately, I mean, I just gotta be. I mean, this felt like a high school class where you realized, oh my gosh, I have to have a Justice League movie tomorrow. Well, let me start writing script right now and turn it in the next hour. You know?
Yeah.
He's like, we're shooting today.
Fuck. It felt like he cut apart what was already a good script, but and then like gave us like the worst cuts like of it. Like it's like you could have. We'll talk about this next week. Yeah. But there were things that were not that big of scenes that they could have put in, just little ones that would have made this movie make a little bit more sense. You know?
His writing in this was so bad that anything good that they kept from Snyder just got worse because it was surrounded by this shit.
Yep.
So if it's not clear, I also say super bad.
Yeah, I go super bad. I mean, you have an exhausted cast re-delivering shitty lines that were rewritten. I can't go much further than that. I mean, it's just bad. And like you said, it's amazing how some of the stuff is a little more elevated. I'm not saying that the second one's perfect or the Snyder Cut's perfect, but stuff is definitely elevated. And some of the cuts that are shared between them, it's because they're sandwiched in between better filmmaking, better visuals, better everything, better writing, and just complete malpractice on this writing. And it's really hard to not only hear shitty lines being delivered by actors who have stopped caring.
Yeah, so. It's mind blowing. Whenever you get something like that, this bad as like the script, it's mind blowing that this is like a successful person in this field at such a high up level. Yeah. And it's just total horse trash.
Who's had a 25-year career.
Meanwhile, you just know there's someone like on the streets of LA right now, homeless, like with an awesome script they're trying to pitch.
Yep.
And it'd be like so much better. And they'll never have a shot, but this is what made it to the big screen.
Yeah. This makes sometimes I think about dying, like just.
I would rather watch that movie 4 times than watch this one again.
I mean, this was if only it was up to Wicked Prayer standards.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I would rather watch Shitty of Angels and Wicked Prayer back to back.
At least we got Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
And Tara Reid.
Yeah.
Oh, she wasn't in. Oh, never mind.
She was in Wicked Prayer.
That's right. I get them confused at this point.
It's okay. That was like 500 movies ago.
Yeah.
0 to 3, justice is being served here.
Amen.
Justice served cold.
And this is where I can't wait to serve justice. Directing, it says Zack Snyder, but I put Joss Whedon
Hold
here.
on. We'll start with the 45 minutes that was Zack Snyder. Okay. I give that 45 minutes a very solid Snyder barely knower.
Yeah.
The rest of it, fuck off. Super bad. Because this is not a Zack Snyder movie. Fuck you for crediting him.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Yep.
Super bad.
I mean, super bad. His job as a director, he did not direct well.
He didn't direct at all.
He went in there like a wrecking ball. Yeah. Like any CEO any new boss of a company would tell you, don't just go in there and shit on the old boss and change everything. And every pastor waits at least 2 years before they start doing big changes.
Right.
I'm just saying, like in any kind of position where you're in
before
leadership,
we're comparing this to a mega church.
Before we bring in the animal sacrifices.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know. I'm just saying, super bad.
Yeah, I think what was interesting about Batman vs Superman, I didn't like it obviously, but I liked a lot of things in it. I didn't give it high ratings, but anything with Batman, but there was enough there. I did give it a high score for the good lore because I was like, this like the whole Mad Max Batman thing. Like I could go back and read a comic. Like it made me a little more interesting. This completely, like everything he did made me never want to watch. In fact, I had seen Snyder's Cut when it came out, but I don't remember a lot of it. Right. It made me not want to watch that one either. I was just like so disengaged and disinterested by everything. It was so flat. It was so neutered. And I also, even though I've criticized Snyder's over-stylization on occasion, I like it, but sometimes it's too much. I was missing it here.
Oh, yeah.
The filters are gone. The coloration's gone. He literally took, like, why couldn't you at least just leave in or at least have some of that Snyder coloration influence here to maintain the visuals?
The continuity of it.
Yeah.
Even the first Wonder Woman movie looked very similar to the Snyder movie.
Yeah.
And the Suicide Squad movie, the original tone of it was supposed to fit into the Snyderverse of BVS and the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And that's when Hamada started coming in and changing everything. It was like, nope, we're just gonna try to be shitty Marvel.
Didn't they do like 2 Suicide Squad movies, but then also like a sequel to one of the Suicide Squad movies?
So there was David Ayer's Suicide Squad, which did get an extended version that they had the gall to call the director's cut, because it's not even close. Literally the day before it came out, he tweeted, "The movie you see tomorrow is not my movie," and then he deleted the tweet because I'm sure someone at Warner Brothers was like, "We're gonna take you to court." So. Apparently he says he does have a mostly finished version of his movie that he would love to get the Snyder Cut treatment. That's never going to happen because fuck you, James Gunn. But yeah, then James Gunn came in and made the Suicide Squad original. And it made even less movie than the original Suicide Squad movie did, or made less money. So yeah.
It's funny, even though I'm not a fan of these movies, I've become a big supporter of Zack Snyder, just as at a personal level. I just want him to succeed now.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't even. We'll talk about this next week. I don't even like his directing style that much.
Sure,
yeah.
But like.
But the respect,
I want him to win.
Like what he's doing.
The respect is there, whether or not you enjoy what he's done. There's respect for the fact that he goes so deep. It's like a style that's not really
my thing. Like I don't like country music either, and I don't like nuts and desserts.
But you respect Chris Stapleton because he's the best of it, even though you don't like it.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel like about him.
I'm hoping Snyder's next one's a banger. I'm cheering for him.
I did like the director's cuts of the Rebel Moon movies, but that's a whole other can of worms.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, don't even take me down that rabbit hole.
It's on the list eventually. We'll get to it.
I've already been living in so much super. I'm going to need a superhero reprieve after this. All right, so it's 0-4. It's going well for Mr. Whedon over here.
Yeah.
I'm sure he listens to this podcast and is very sad right now.
He probably has time now. He's going to be directing Full House remakes.
Hey, if Bill Burr can like one of our reels, then I'm sure Joss Whedon pays attention to every episode.
We've had a couple of celebrity endorsements recently. Mr. Bill Burr liked one of our posts, and then Garrett, what was his name? Bill Garrett, who played on The Brother and Everybody Loves Raymond, and he's in Seinfeld. Also,
very cool.
We're getting love, and you sit there and won't even share with your friends.
Come on.
Also, if either one of the two of you ever want to be on the podcast, just hit us up. We got you.
Yep. I interviewed one of Bill's best friends, Steve Byrne, so he's been on the podcast. So maybe I could work through Steve.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we could
do it.
We could do it. Because Bill was in a movie that Steve directed. Pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
0-4, Mr. Whedon, happy birthday! What's in front of us? Cinematography, production, design, sound, costumes, editing.
This is the craziest thing for me, because obviously I've seen the Snyder Cut significantly more times than I've seen this, but I did not realize until this second viewing of Justice League how starkly different. Like, I can physically tell when Joss shot something or reshot something, and then you go into a shot that was clearly done by Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
It is absurd. Everything looked cheaper. Everything looked shittier. The animation was so much worse in the stuff that Joss Whedon was putting together. All of it just horrible. So I am once again giving it a super bad, because fuck you, Joss Whedon.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest complaint about this movie is you see that it's like you're watching, it's just the things not mixing well.
Yeah.
You know? And I think the biggest things were the editing cut choices where he decided to reshoot. So if he used 45 minutes of the movie, that means he had access to the rest of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
So he could have added, extra 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And he could have put some scenes in there just to make it all make a little bit more sense.
For context, the only thing that Zack Snyder shot after the fact for the Snyder Cut was the very last epilogue scene of the vision or the dream.
The premonition, yeah.
Yeah, the dream and the Martian Manhunter scene.
Which I can't wait to talk about how that is so weird.
Yes.
The Martian Manhunter, but that's next week.
That is how much access Joss Whedon had, was he had everything but that last 5 minutes.
Yeah. So, I mean, the only thing I will say in positive before I say super bad is, I mean, I do like that this had a more peppy, high-energy superhero feel to it, and that's different than what Snyder wants to do with his movies, which is totally okay. But, so I did find that kind of relieving when watching it. It was like it felt like a regular quote unquote regular superhero movie.
Yeah.
But there's too much other not good stuff, so super bad for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So super bad. I just
super worst. Super worst.
Again,
super fuck you.
I got to give Zach credit. This is not my type of movie. These aren't my genre, but at least I can. What the best thing I can say about Zach is, even though I'm not a fan of this series, he gives me moments.
Yeah.
I can at least say I didn't like Batman vs Superman, but there were some moments where I was like, "That's pretty cool," especially with the Batman stuff. All that's gone here.
Yeah.
I'm not clinging to any of the writing. I'm not clinging to the visuals. And again, curmudgeon, old man, I don't like CGI villains. I don't like CGI characters that are on screen for long periods of time, except for Lord of the Rings. I'm fine with it there. But
I mean, we don't have any like orc actors that we can ask to join, so it makes sense.
Exactly. Somehow, and again, Steppenwolf, he's a little too much CGI for no matter which movie I'm watching. But here, somehow he made it even worse for me with the Steppenwolf. Like, I don't know why.
I mean, he looks like a ball sack if a ball sack to be a real boy.
Cancerous, a cancerous lung with a helmet. And I'm just the choices, and it just reminds me. I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's Oscar season. Who gives a shit about the Oscars? This is big Hollywood just falling flat on its face.
Yeah.
It's just big cast, money, executives everywhere, and I am just seeing a flat, serviceable. When I say serviceable, it's a movie. Yeah. It came out. It probably appeased a small segment.
It tells a story.
It tells a story, but let me tell you, I've seen movies for just a tiny tenth of this budget deliver visually. And I just can't believe what I'm seeing.
Fuck it. Compare this to Upgrade. Upgrade had a $5 million budget and was way more fun to watch than this one.
And it's shorter. And it's got fewer actors and people that, the Upgrade is actually a perfect comparison.
Absolutely. I was thinking that.
Yeah.
I'm at this point where I can't tolerate this shit. Sorry, you had a rant last week. I'm going on a rant now.
Let's go.
Oh, I call next week.
Okay, please. Yep, we all get a rant. We need to have a rant section. Maybe we can do a whole side podcast with our rants. It's Oscar season, and I watched this at the wrong time because my boy Edgar's got the shaft. He got a few side nominations, but he didn't get the ones that matters. None of the actors in Nosferatu got the nominations that matter. Not that this would have gotten nominations, but what I'm saying is big Hollywood is a big machine, and this kind of shit annoys me. I hate big casts that just like fall flat on their face. And again, we see better performances in the next one, right? Or in the last one. But here, the fact that this was passable and this was encouraged at the executive level, it's malpractice. Shut up and stop ruining independent thinking filmmakers.
Seriously, though.
There we go.
Sorry, that's my rant.
It's a good rant.
It's Oscar season and it just pisses me off. Sorry. I like ranting. It's nice.
Well, and the reality is more people than not have the same opinions about this movie, right? Like, and it's just ridiculous that it's on such a big scale. I mean, all the ingredients were there for a good movie, because I mean, all those actors are fantastic.
Oh yeah,
and we've seen them do well.
Yeah, if they were given good scripts, I mean, and like
as these characters,
and we have the kind of technology to do all the things better than what we've critiqued. It's just people who are already got the followers, already got the position, already got the money. They're gonna generate shit.
Side note, I forgot to bring up how mediocre Danny Elfman's score for this movie was. Yes. Nothing about it stood out.
No.
Everything just felt like we were back in the 90s in a Tim Burton movie. It just felt so bad. None of the tone matched anything that had been done before.
It's not something I noticed when I watched the movie, maybe because I was noticing too many other things.
Yeah.
But like we've said this before, how like when you hear a good track to go with a scene, I think Man of Steel when he's flying for the first time, like
good stuff.
It makes such a difference, and we had none of those moments.
I'm going to see Hans Zimmer perform that next week.
Apparently,
I guess by the time this podcast comes out, a couple days before.
My phone. Apparently, my phone hears you say that all the time, because every time I turn on YouTube now, I get a commercial.
Hans Zimmer.
They're pumping the shit out of it. I've seen it everywhere too, even though I bought tickets already.
Zimmer, barely know her. 0 to 5. It is going well for you, Mr. Whedon. How does it feel?
Are you not entertained?
You and Ezra Miller having drinks somewhere in Greenland.
I like to think Amber Heard's hanging out.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah, shitting on the table.
That's the real Injustice League.
That's
With Walter Hamada in there too.
Yeah, it's the what do they call the what is it? The Mario, the Dark World version,
Wario.
It's like that version of the Justice League,
which is also called the Injustice League. That was my joke.
This is the category I've been waiting for all day. How good are these bad guys, huh?
What bad guys?
Oh my god.
Oh my god is correct. So I'm not even gonna compare him to the way he is in the Snyder Cut, just because when this came out, we didn't know. We didn't have any conception of what he was supposed to look like. Just in this, why is he wearing ancient Egyptian garb? Yeah. Why does he show up literally looking like a pharaoh?
All he had in the closet, all right? Look,
apparently, what the closet that he came out of?
You know?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck was he thinking? He like we've said, he looks like a fucking ball sack that's got horns and is wearing some ancient Egyptian like dollar store costume of a pharaoh.
Feels a little racist to whatever alien race he is, but okay.
Who cares? Oh my god, it's so bad. Super bad. Bucket.
I'll judge this based because we can only look at this movie, and that's the thing. Because like I didn't mind him as a villain. If this was a one Justice League of 3, he's like in general not a bad first villain. But with just what we saw of him in this, without knowing the things you know from the other movies, without things you know just in general. Got to give him a super bad because very generic and underwhelming. Like if you picked up this movie and you've never seen a Superman anything, and you were just to have like, well, this is the information I have of this guy. The Justice League just didn't give us enough. It just was a bad dude up to no good.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah, this is so super bad for me. It hits the marker for me as hating CGI characters that are prominent on screen, and it's just badly done. Also, you know, you may recall, but Dark Knight Rises, there was a lot of concern about Bane being the villain. They're initially like, Bane?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, and I liked him in other iterations.
Yeah.
But Christopher Nolan hired the right actor and elevated that character.
Absolutely.
He changed him in a way that made him very interesting.
Yeah.
That was an option here.
Yeah.
If we had someone at the helm that was worth a damn, this Steppenwolf could have been interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Like when they take these obscure villains, that is an opportunity to like do something noteworthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bane's the best example of that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, Bane was a fantastic villain in Batman. He's created to be Batman's equal. Secondly, they neutered him in The Dark Knight Rises when they made Talia al Ghul the mastermind behind it.
I disagree, but to each their own. I don't know. Like in that universe, it made sense, but I get your complaint. But I disagree.
I feel like I love everything about that trilogy except for that part, and it's like the old baggage I have from an old breakup from years ago.
Are you missing all the tubes in his back and stuff? Is that what you're missing? The backpack with all of his Venom stuff in it?
Like that didn't bother me that much. It was that in the movie he was like at first he was like such a bad guy, which was like he was originally created to be Batman's physical equal with the same intellect.
Yeah.
And I liked that. I mean, the old version of him in that Batman Forever movie or whatever was definitely that was the worst version of him. But this one, it switched so quickly when they made him not the main villain. And I know this isn't a movie review of The Dark Knight Rises, so it's okay if you edit that out. But
no, it's good. No, it makes sense because we're talking about comparing to other villain universes.
Yeah.
And again, I keep saying this, but speaking of Bane, my one gripe with every single one of these movies is I am just missing Batman villains.
Yeah.
And so much so that I even was so excited in the premonition to see Joker. I was like, whoa, at least Joker's here. Like, I just love those villains.
I would have loved to see, I would have loved to see more of everything in these movies regarding the future sequence where you see like the post-apocalyptic Justice League, or in that case, it's probably a combination of Justice League and Injustice League. But like Jared Leto's Joker, I didn't love him in like Suicide Squad. I didn't,
which is fair because we only saw 15 minutes of the hour of scenes that he had in the original version.
But I was intrigued by him. I wanted to see more of him. It was one of those I was like, I feel like I probably won't like this version of the Joker, but it was different.
Yeah,
and I don't mind different sometimes when it's unique.
So that whole future scene stuff that was supposed to be Justice League 2.
Okay,
like that was supposed to be the entirety of that movie. Lois dies near the beginning and the world goes into chaos, and then that's where all of those premonitions were leading to that being the middle of the Justice League trilogy.
That was probably the most intriguing part of the whole series to me, is anytime they showed like that future stuff, because I don't know, it looks different enough.
Yeah. Well, I have a whole thing dedicated to that premonition in the next episode, because that was interesting for me as a non-comic book person. 0 to 6.
Yeah.
This one's the one that we change our mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I know.
Might hit a queen sweep here.
I'm trying to think. This may be the first ever. If we do go 0-7, I don't think that's ever happened before.
I think Shitty of Angels was.
Was it?
Because I was like, we've been here before.
Yeah.
So,
I think a few of us voted positive on some things, but ultimately it ended up.
So
being,
this might be the first ever clean sweep.
Yeah. Good lore.
I mean, like you said, it makes me not give a fuck.
Yeah.
It makes me never care to look into anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie ended, and I was, when I first saw it, as much as I did enjoy it when it first came out, I didn't want to look into any of the other characters. Like, sure, Aquaman was going to come out in a few months, but that was like it. Like, that's all I gave a shit about. But no, it's so bad. He took every possible good thing that he could have pulled out of Snyder's version and just said, fuck you.
Yeah.
So no, it's super bad.
The real question is what my answer will be for the next week on, because I'm divided on that for right now. But
That's
for this week, no, like because what little we had of everything. I mean, you were saying as a not superhero fan, you don't want to go look into anything. I mean, there are so many captivating characters in this movie that are worth looking into.
Yeah.
But good Lord, if this was my first introduction to the Flash. There's no way I would. Again, he's one of my favorites. Like I would have. There's no way.
No.
And you just don't get enough of the other characters.
Let's go get brunch after this, guys.
Yeah.
Let's go get brunch.
Yeah.
What the fuck was with that joke?
I know, it doesn't make sense. Even you saying it out loud, I'm like, I forgot that was even said.
I was like, okay, that sounds good.
The fact that they do that he does the race as the mid-credit scene is like, if I win, you're gonna get everyone brunch.
Yeah.
Like, fuck that.
Yeah. After you just got shat on.
Yeah.
During a whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So super bad.
Oh yes, super bad.
Yeah. I do too. And what sucks is, like, again, I keep going back to this. These aren't my favorite. These aren't my favorites, but the thing that Man of Steel and even Batman vs. Superman did is, like, they gave me enough to say, I could keep going.
Yeah.
And this is interesting. There were interesting things in it that at least propelled me to say, I could keep going through this. This makes me want to disregard anything after.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I caught onto it years after all the shit happened, because I at least know enough to say, I need to give Snyder Cut a trilogy. Had I been doing this in real time, I would have said, hell no, I'm not spending any money, any time with this series. That was everything the few things I did love about the first two are completely gone here. Yeah. Completely gone.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like Ben Affleck's not even acting.
Yeah.
I'm like, where is Batman? Where is what is he?
Because he literally wasn't. He literally was in an alcoholic trance for the entirety of the reshoots.
Yeah.
Like it, and he has said
I was watching
was
it wishing
this.
I was in an alcoholic trance.
I know. Yeah. This was a bad month for me to decide to do dry January.
Yeah. Yeah.
But literally, he's said multiple times, like, doing this is what turned him into a full-blown alcoholic.
Well, I don't know if we can.
Oh no, I'm sure he was drinking plenty before that, but he said
that shouldn't be an, like, I don't know, like.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, like, this is what made it bad. This is what took it from fun drinking to drinking because he hates himself.
Yeah.
Like, that's what happened during these reshoots.
Side note, don't let your job become your identity where you fall into terrible places because of a bad work environment.
Get help, people.
Yeah.
But
don't do movies with Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
Going back to what you're saying, so when we watch the Snyder movies, and we'll see this again next week, you can see where he picks all the different things from comics and inspirations of the different characters and stuff like that. And then you, as a viewer, you get to decide whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
But it always starts with, like, I see where he's coming from, but with this, because he just cut pieces of the what was already there, very small pieces, and then he just kind of threw his own stuff together with what seemed like no, like, knowledge or thought to, like, these characters in general. There was, like, whereas with Snyder you could be like, I see what he did with the lore, and maybe I didn't like it, maybe I liked it. With this version, you're like, where's the lore?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, 0 to 7, Joss. How does it feel?
Suck a dick.
Yeah, injustice is what it feels like. So we're gonna do the Snyder Cut next week.
Yeah.
Shares 45 minutes of footage, and it has a lore all its own.
Yeah.
Thanks to Reddit and fans.
Yeah.
If it was an hour longer, you would be legally obligated by Tennessee to take a 30-minute or more break.
Yeah.
Watching it. It's so long.
Yeah.
Well,
it took 3 sit-ins.
Yeah.
For me.
I mean, that's fair. We'll talk about it. About it.
Well, but even though it's not my bag, super thing, I actually have enjoyed going through this. So I'm excited. We're gonna cap it off, and I would love for us to give us our I'm not gonna give a stack rank because it's so all over. But last episode of the series, we're gonna give like just our own summary, and thought of what happened. So tune in. Thank you so much for chilling with us. Love you. I'm Kyle.
Seth.
I'm Drew.
Bye, Joss.
The Movie Wars.